So to start out this morning, what I'm going to do is take a couple minutes to really talk to you about what we're seeing as advancements in technology in the pipeline realm, right? So this is where my focus is every day, talking to operators, talking to customers, trying to figure out what people are doing and sort of how to pin this all together with the Esri technology. And really a lot of the work that I've been focused on is trying to figure out, how do we manage data more effectively and push that data and bring value to the organization with this sort of system of record information, whether that be upstream data for oil and gas, offshore, onshore gathering systems, the traditional space where we've always played in the midstream, and also a bunch of interesting workflows in the downstream segment. But really, how do we tie this all together and represent this in a real world scenario? And Brian had kind of touched on this idea yesterday in the plenary about this, the digital twin and ArcGIS being the foundation of that digital twin. So I want to just really expand on that concept a little more. So this concept of the digital twin has been around for a while. Some will consider it more of a buzzword, but we've really taken some time here at Esri to put some real structure around what this means and what it means to build a digital twin of your pipeline assets in the ArcGIS system. It's really kind of as a baseline or a definition, really what are those digital twins? They're really the virtual representation of those assets in the real world. But I think what really brings it to life for me is it's not only the physical objects that are in the field, but how those physical objects relate to each other, what behaviors do they have, and how do they participate in a real-time process, right? Those are the intelligence. It's not just simply points and lines on a map anymore. These devices have behaviors, they have rules associated within that digital twin. And really what we're doing is leveraging the GIS to really build that digital twin of that physical environment into the data models. And so it's not only just the pipeline itself, the digital twin, right? So we have other representations or other twins. And the idea here is that these digital twins can work together. So we have what we would consider the network information model. This is where we build the pipeline systems. We also have things like building information models, maybe where these facilities are contained within. We also have kind of landscape information models or information models about the real world. These could be things like geohazards and how they may impact the pipelines. So it's not just a single digital twin, but really a collection of digital twins that are brought together within the ArcGIS system and then talk together. But what does this digital twin solve? When do I go to my management and I say, hey, I need so many dollars to build a system of record and build a digital twin of my pipelines? What are those things that we're trying to solve this digital twin? Well, first and foremost, what we've been doing for years is a historical baseline of what our assets are in the field, right? What do we own? Where is it? What's the location? What's the history of it? But on top of that, physical assets, we now also want to integrate real-time data, right? This kind of brings a digital twin alive. Now, obviously, the first thing you think about when we think about real-time data is integrating with SCADA, but there's all kinds of sensor information along the pipelines, including personnel, people, vehicles, flow information, other systems. All this data really belongs inside the digital twin and really brings it to life and makes it a real thing with real live data inside of it. But then the third thing, and I think is the most important and probably the thing that is sort of emerging in the digital twin area, is to be able to take that combination of the physical assets and the real-time data, put it together, and then test the model for future outcomes, right? So first thing that comes to my mind is flow modeling, right? We've been doing that in a separate system for years, taking the GIS data and moving it out. We want to be able to do that all together inside the system and bring that information together. So there's really four key pieces of that digital twin, right? We have the four key components that go into it. It's the data capture and integration. It's the visualization of that real-time data. It's a sharing and collaboration, and that predictive analysis. So really, when we think about that, integration and data capture, it's not just about data management and pipeline data models and putting information into the system. It's things like extracting data from reality capture. It's data modeling around 3D BIM information, bringing information from from other sources or information in from real 3D data capture. These are all kind of foundational components of building that digital twin that we're integrating through the platform. What also includes things like the ArcGIS pipeline referencing system and the APR system itself. But customers are always really interested in how they bring in information from, say, construction, design, and as-builting, right? So we've been doing a lot of work with integrating with things like AutoCAD and Autodesk to help move data efficiently between these two systems. So we've got the GIS system that's really been primarily focused on planning, regulatory compliance, and that sort of that capital portfolio management, right? That ongoing operations. But planning data from the GIS feeds into the detailed design, pre-construction, and construction process. And then that as-built documentation wants to flow easily back into the GIS for operation. And it's this integration of these two systems, not the separation of these two systems. That's the important piece to take away from this slide. We're doing more and more to make this movement of data between the CAD world and GIS world seamless as we go through that process. Then it's a real-time visualization, right? Another pillar of that digital twin. So integrating things like velocity that we saw yesterday from Matt and the geo event server, bringing in real-time information and be able to overlay that on the physical assets really enhances that decision-making process relative to those assets. So we've got all kinds of different tools and technologies that allow you to do that, not only bring that data in, but report on it, whether it be through dashboards or other types of web interfaces to be able to take that information and then easily move that out to the decision makers within the organization. And then finally, that kind of really sets the stage for sharing and collaboration. And we've seen all kinds of really interesting use cases about how companies have taken this data that was locked away within their GIS department, put on alignment sheets, and really enable the rest of the organization to have access to this data in real time through things like web maps and story maps and dashboards. And we've really seen a proliferation of this type of technology through these organizations because we can now build these really fit for purpose applications. We no longer have just one web application with 1,000 widgets in it that we display to everybody. We're really building these very fit for purpose apps that we can really target the audience that uses that application and put tools in their hands that allow them to be more efficient on a daily basis. And then the last piece of this, the last pillar of this digital twin is this providing insights for future data modeling, right? So we're looking at machine learning, AI modeling. How do we take this information, put it through some type of predictive analysis, and then really gain some interesting insights and value to the organization? So we're doing a lot of work in this area. We have a whole team dedicated at Esri to this AI ML machine learning problem, and a lot of interesting templates that we've actually started producing, a lot of them very specific to pipeline, like building extraction, or like real-time modeling, right? So take a look at those new models. They're very, very powerful and then tie directly into this digital twin concept. But in the end of the day, really to build this digital twin, if we want to really start at the foundation, we need to have that physical record of the assets. And so customers are asking us a couple things in this area. First and foremost, they want to upgrade and modernize their core system of record, right? To be able to take advantage of the AI ML, the story maps, the dashboard, the system of engagement. Really, we need to have that data inside the enterprise geodatabase and accessible to the rest of the stack. So companies are looking to consolidate their data sets, build a single enterprise geodatabase for all their pipe records. The second question we're being asked is, hey, we want to leverage our investment in Esri. We want to be able to edit that data inside that Esri geodatabase with out-of-the-box tools, right? So this is where we layer on top of that enterprise geodatabase ArcGIS pipeline referencing for the linear referencing, that midstream segment, but also the utility network to build a connected model. Because if we just have routes and measures, but we don't know how the system is connected, if we don't bring the intelligence of the devices to understand, what's an open or closed valve, or what's a pump, or what's a compressor station, what's downstream of those, we really can't do that forward predictive analysis, right? So we need the intelligence of the utility network, which builds a connected model. We need the power of linear referencing to deal with all the regulatory layers that we need to lay on top of those pipes. And we need to be working in conjunction. And that's really what we're offering to the industry, right? Is that package of these tools on a single enterprise geodatabase working together to build the foundation of that digital twin and really drive all those workflows that I showed you on those previous slides. So let me just show you a quick demo of what I'm talking about relative to those tools. So this is a typical pipeline system. I know a lot of you have probably seen this before, but I do have a couple of new things to show you. Everybody who sits through my demos knows that I never take up lose an opportunity to show something new. But for the folks that haven't seen it, right, this is the idea here is that we've got a connected network of pipes, both upstream gathering or onshore gathering, down through a transmission system, and then ultimately into some downstream facility at the refining on the other end. This happens to be a crude line, but the same sort of cadence would hold true for a gas transmission system as well. And so when we really start thinking of what we've been doing traditionally with these models, if I zoom in on a station here, we've always had the ability to build routes and linear referencing in these models. And if I turn on some context here, by turning on some imagery, you can see we've got the sort of pipeline linear reference model here coming into this station. We stop at the end of the line here, and we pick up at 0+0 and keep on going downstream. Now, we don't really have a lot of intelligence of what's going in here. So when we start layering in the utility network, the first thing that I have the ability to do is start to manage both my stationed and non-stationed pipe. Right. So here now I have the utility network underpinning my linear referencing system, and I've started to build out the launcher receiver assembly that I might have not have had previously in my linear referencing system. And then I can start layering in my pipeline devices. So in this particular case, I've got sort of two mainline block valves here and a pump or compressor station sitting over here inside this building. And then layering in some junctions. And the reason I'm doing this is because in this very simple case, I want to start to build a connected network. So now I'm using the power of the utility network to take these objects that are in the model and connect them together. So here I've just created an association between the endpoints of this pipeline, connected through, discover this pump, back out onto the line here, and down through the system. So when I talk about mapping inside the fence, I don't mean having to have every little component and every little bend, but I do mean to start building some more additional intelligence around these facilities using this concept of the utility network and the linear referencing system combined. So if we start thinking about a different example, here's a place along the pipeline that we've typically had a lot of issues with, right? So I have 3 pipelines running into the station. I really have some stationing information here, but I don't know how these lines are connected. And if I do have information about what's going on in this facility, I've typically just added it to the ends of my pipelines. Maybe I've just created an inventory stack at the same station, but I don't really know what's going on inside of here. But the first thing we've allowed us to do with the utility network is create what we call containers. So in this case, I've created a GIS object that represents this station as just a single point. And if I go into this point and I modify it and I take a look at what's going on inside of here, you can see it's got a list of features that are associated with it. And if we just turn those features on, take a look at what's going on inside this facility, you can see all those features. So these are all the features that I've got associated with that facility. You can see the pumps, the T's, the fittings all inside of here. And again, we have connectivity that shows how all these things are connected together. So if we just turn on the connectivity view again here, we'll see we come off of this main line into this T, we branch out into these valves, into these meters and pumps, and now this is a fully connected, discoverable network. If I was to do a network trace through this part of the network, I would find all these objects and I'd see how all these pipes are connected together. And then finally, if we kind of think about it in the terms of what I'm really after for a fully mapped out system, I can go to this station here where I've got both linear referencing pipe coming into the launcher receiver. I've got the inside the fence piping mapped as well as the bits inside the building, right? All connected together, all inside the single data model and discoverable as I move down the system. So this is key as well, because not only can I discover these items, but I can represent this whole thing in a different way. So I'm now going to leverage the ability to create a diagram from this particular system. And now I've just taken that entire pipeline system and represented it as a single line diagram. So here you can see that same pump station. I can see all the bits inside of it. If I zoom in a little closer here, I can see all my design pressures for all my fittings. And if I'm really interested in this, say this meter here, I can just select on that meter and apply it back to my map. And you can see everything is connected together. And there's that meter there on the map. So I can move back and forth between the diagrams and the map. I can represent this information in different ways. But ultimately, what I'm trying to do is also be able to edit this information. So my last example is really kind of coming down here into this reroute area. Here I have a typical pipeline segment, section of pipeline here. And I've got, if I want to take a look at the underlying survey data, what I can do here is turn on some support layers. So I've got an as-built survey that came in for this section of pipeline. I've got a bunch of weld information along that line, and ultimately some pipelines. So in this case, I've just used the out-of-the-box Esri tool to sort of create that pipeline, connect all these welds together for this reroute area. And then just using the out-of-the-box Esri tools, take that reroute, take that pipe information, and move it into the utility network, right? So now I have that pipe information in the utility network. I have that pipeline built, and then using that same information from that pipeline, I can go ahead and start and do, say, a reroute in this area. I can select these centerline objects. I can choose what network I'm going to do this reroute on. Choose a date that it's active. And then ultimately tie this reroute into those lines on both ends. Then I would just go ahead and finish that reroute out. And that would then take that pipe and move it into the utility network and into the APR. So again, using out-of-the-box tools to go ahead and create those layers, create that pipe, add it to the utility network, and finish off that reroute just using out-of-the-box Esri tools, a combination of the location referencing ribbon that has all my linear referencing features and my utility network to build that connected model of pipes and fittings underneath.